Hi, I'm Neil Barker and welcome to my video guide on stripping the iPhone 4S down pretty much all the way, but we're going to remove the screen primarily. As you can see, this screen's got a great big crack down it. I'll just power it on. Yeah, we're going to remove the screen, but it's pretty much, you're going to be taking it all the way down. There's a few cables left that I'll mention as we get down there. So what we're going to do is, first of all, on AppleiPodParts.com you can find all the parts you need, all the accessories, all the tools, which will follow me, and I'll mention them as we go, all the useful tools. Even the tool tray, these trays are fantastic on organising your screws as you strip it, and they can be found on our tools and accessories section. First we can start off with a pentalobe Torx shape 5-star screwdriver for the 2 screws in the bottom of the iPhone 4. There we go, just to show that it's obviously still swipes and you've got that crack along the bottom, along the middle, sorry, and that damage in the bottom. We're just going to power it off. Right, there we go. So I've got my anti-static wristband on to prevent any damage. Now we're going to remove, which I highly recommend, we're going to remove the 2 bottom screws with the Torx sort of pentalobe screwdriver. They come out with no problem at all. And then the rear casing, you get your thumb, it's powered off now, you get your thumb and you push it towards the top of the phone and it clears by about 2 or 3 mil, and then you should just literally be able to lift it out like that. Simple as that. Rear comes away, and there's the back replacement. So if you're just replacing the back, then that's all you need to replace it. You're just looking at slotting it in above it and then pushing it down and putting those 2 screws in, which will cover on the rebuild as we do that. So we move that out of the way. The iPhone 4S looks extremely similar to the 4. There's quite a few subtle little differences. We don't need the pentalobe screwdriver anymore, not until we rebuild it. We need the hex head, the Phillips now. So we're going to go about stripping the iPhone 4 now. The 4S, sorry. Now this is crucial to keep all the screws in the right place. And what I do is, all these little compartments are fantastic, and I lay I lay the phone in there, and I literally strip the screws out as we go. Now we're going to start. That's the dock. That's the sort of the speaker. We'll take that screw out there and put it in there. We'll take the battery out, and there's 2 screws instead of the 1 and the 4. There's 2 screws that come out. That one there and that one there. Now we've seen an increase in battery terminals being ripped off the board, so you've got to be really careful and make sure you remove both screws. Again, they're all different sizes, so you've just got to really have to work hard to keep them all separate. And then the battery terminal is going to come out. Now both those screws are out. We're just going to get a tool to just flick under the head itself of the connector, and off it comes. A lot of people go far too deep, go in and then try and knock this black connector, and this black connector just tears off the board, which we can repair. You can find links to repair on our site as well. But that's a case of just literally getting that silver plate and lifting it up, and the battery comes out. Now we're going to get the little tweezers in. I'm going to take there's the little bracket that sits on there, and that just sits on top of the aerial connector there as well, and that stops that from popping up in normal use. So that little connection, that little plate goes in there. Now the battery's good to sort of come out. We're going to use the Apple tab. Sometimes this doesn't work, sometimes it's too hard stuck in, but we'll give it a bit of a pull, and the battery comes away like that. It's stuck down with quite a bit of adhesive, and there's the battery. So you know, if you're doing a battery replacement, out with the old, in with the new, you make sure that bracket goes on first, you push the connector in, 2 screws, and you reassemble. So that's the battery out of the way. I always remove this tab, it's just stuck down, it just gets in the way when you try and go further, it flaps around, it's a bit annoying, so we'll remove that. Next thing I'm going to do is the dock connector. So 2 screws, and this little plate here comes off. Again, all the screws are different sizes, so keep them nice and separate if you're not sure where they go. That should be that plate lifting off now. This phone's never been open again, there you go, that's that plate that comes off. Exposes the dock connector socket there, and that's the dock connector that comes all the way along under this speaker. Pop that connector off. Again, when you come in using sort of like a non-marking tool or a spudger, I mean we do the spudgers on our site as well, when you come in, just make sure that you don't go too close to the board, you don't end up knocking chips off. You really have to be careful to get just underneath the cable and use the minimum of force just to lift, and then what happens is this cable's just stuck down along there lightly, so it's just a case of running it down lightly and lifting that off. So that's the dock connector cable out there. Now we've removed 1 screw from that speaker dock so far. We can remove the other screw here, just like so, and we've got a minuscule little plastic bracket that comes with that as well. So that's that off. Next thing we're going to do is going to release the little antenna. This is the antenna cable. If this pops off, you'll lose signal. Simple. When you come under there, and it just lifts off. They're quite difficult to put on without damaging the connector. You've got to be really careful. And then that cable just kind of unwraps like so. Now the next thing we're going to do, we might as well do one at the bottom of the board here, is this little castellated screw in the corner of the board, holding the board down, has to lift out. Simple little flat blade lifts that little castellated screw, and we're going to put that in that little section there so we know where it comes from. Next thing we're going to do, obviously as we're working our way up the board, is that we're going to start releasing the screws up here that takes this Wi-Fi sort of bracket off. Now again, you've got to keep all these separate. They all come through, they're all different lengths. And what I do is say, right, those two screws on a plane. So I'm going to put them in there. Obviously I know the longer one goes in the left hand side towards the chassis and the smaller one goes inboard. Those two come off, and then you've got that one there. Tiny screw in that pocket. Really long screw at the top that goes all the way through to the chassis. That comes out. These are all very similar to the iPhone 4. And then also we'll take the screw out of the board, the main board as well, and we'll put that over here because that's on the right hand side of the board. It's a case of pretty much removing stuff as we go. This little screw here holds the bracket down. Tiny screw that goes up there, and that's this bracket lifts up. And all it is, this is just like a retaining bracket for a little circular aerial connector. That lifts up there and drops back in there. We have another castellated screw up here. Going to get the tiny little flat blade on that. Now again, on AppleiPodParts.com you can get all the parts, all the accessories. The little iPhone 4/4S toolkit is perfect. You've got the hex head, you've got the flat blade. I'm pretty sure you've got the flat blade. You've got the pentalobe screwdrivers. You've got all the plastic non-micing tools, suction cups, this and the other. So they're all worth having. Now, next thing we're going to lift off is this top bracket. Now this should come. I'm pretty sure I've got all the screws up. There you go. It's just hooked in there, and then it has two tabs that tuck into this metal frame here. So you kind of lift it out and you lift it off like that. There we go, and that exposes all the connectors at the top of the board. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start popping these clips off for the connections. So we'll start in that corner of this little circular sort of aerial style plug. It's a case of getting in there and just lifting it up gently as we go. Then you've got the digitizer connector. Again, that lifts, and the LCD connector as well. You're getting underneath it. Again, be careful not to touch the board too much and knock anything off. So that's the digitizer and LCD off. The little circular aerial connector coming in here, and we start undoing the connections for all the cables, the ancillaries connections. You've got one there that lifts up. That goes around to the volume and I think the mute, possibly the headphone jack. A little connection underneath here. You have all sorts of sensors and stuff running along there, and then there's one connection there as well. That should lift off. There we go. That's all the cables unplugged. And on this one, we have to release the camera as well. Again, there's so many tiny little minuscule chips under there. I don't know if you can see that. Minuscule tiny chips under there. It's a case of going under between them and the connector and just lifting the camera out. You've got to remove the camera in this. You didn't have to in the iPhone 4, but the 4S does because there's a little snatty little screw under there. Put that out of the way. Then hidden under this little black piece of tape here, we're just going to peel it off gently, there we go, is that little screw there. Now that, and one thing that a lot of people forget to put in the orientation, under that screw there's a little gold grounding tag. Now we'll take the screw out, and the tag will come as well. We'll put that in that corner of the camera so I remember what screw that is. There we go. And that's, a lot of people forget this little gold tag, how it goes. If you just remember that tags go at the top. There's little tags there, they go at the top. A lot of people put it in, fitting it that way, and of course that's useless. So we'll put that in there as well. So that's the iPhone 4. Next thing we need to do is check that we've got pretty much all the screws out, which I'm confident we have, and then remove the SIM card tray. With the iPhone 4S, it's nice and warm now. We're just going to remove the screen. Now the iSesamo, again, it's fantastic. It's just a case of slotting it in between the metal frame and the screen and just gently prying away from the frame itself. When it's nice and warm, it comes off so much easier. The only thing we might have a bit of an issue with, not at all, is that corner where it's broken. But there you go, it's lifted off, slide it around, that's it. It comes out with the greatest of ease. And then when you get to that point, it's a case of just jiggling the cables out from that little slot there. And there you go, you've got the separation between, you've got the screen itself and the chassis for the frame. The only thing we're going to rescue that's different on these is we're going to rescue the home button for the actual the new screen. You can see the adhesives come away, there's no glass stuck to it, there's no dirt because it's been quite a clean break, it's been done quite soon. So we're going to leave the adhesive, but what you can do on our site is you can get the pre-cut adhesive sets like so. They're all cut out and punched so you can fit them to actual perfection really. So there we go, we're going to get the new screen ready to go, and we're going to save that adhesive and use that. So with the new screen, again, like I said, you can get the parts from AppleiPodParts.com. They all come complete as well. A lot of the cheap rubbish screens you can buy, are missing certain things, like earpiece gauzes and things like that you go, oh, I need that, because it obviously you fit it without the earpiece gauze and it looks hideous, as well as getting dirty. The only thing you need to do is transfer over that home button. So you get the other screen. All it does is you're just going to push the home button out. And it's got a little flap with some sticky on it, and it comes away quite nicely. So that's the old screen away, and then it's just a case of placing it into the new screen quite somewhere near square. Whatever you use to sort of pull and push and pull around it, I recommend using the plastic tools, because if you scratch this black, then you'll see a line through the other side of the screen, because it's like black paint. You scratch it through and it looks hideous from the front. So whatever you use to sort of move, and even the lightest, we could use tweezers, but you think you're being really gentle and really light, and it doesn't take much to just literally scratch that, and that's it. It looks as ugly as you like. Nice little trick though, if that happens to a little black Sharpie permanent marker over it, it tends to not look so obvious from the front. There we go. So make sure the home button's nice and square. There's nothing worse than a wonky home button, and essentially that's the screen ready to go. Now a lot of people, and we see this all the time, so many people who bodge repair these don't take this off. And now a lot of people go, oh, it's not, it's always blue if it's genuine. That's absolute rubbish. Depends what, there's a couple of different manufacturers of LCD screens. I think there's Sharp and there's a couple of others, and it just depends on what backing they use. So you peel that backing off, whether it be blue, red, yellow, whatever. Remove that. So many people don't, and it looks hideous. So connectors themselves, they slot in. Now, because they're a bit dog-legged, you have to go in at an angle, hook it round, and then push the screen through. Now, we've got the adhesive, it's all on there, it's all okay. So we're going to go for the screen connectors, push them through, like that. And then one thing to do, when you're from this angle at the top, I don't know if you can see that, but in there, like the iPhone 4, is just gently, don't pull them, just coax them through with your finger as you're pushing the screen on, because you'll see that there's a cable with a little bit of a dog leg on the side, and that can often get caught up and get sandwiched between the screen and the frame. You can screw it all together and you end up pinching the cable. It's sandwiched so it doesn't sit square anyway, and then it ruins the cable and you need a new screen. So make sure that's all the way through, and as you're feeding the screen on, you're just making sure that when you look around here, that these spacers are inboard to the phone. Now, some of another common mistake, but it's just a case of going down one side, making sure that all these little washer spacers are down, and then you gently push the screen on, and you see the little fork tangs come on. They come and they sandwich between the spacer washer and the frame. So that's those three down, and then you can do the same on this side. Right, those three, and there you go. That's all gone. Now, nice little paranoia check is to have a look around there. So there's no gaps whatsoever all the way around the frame. There should be no gaps, and then the home button's nice and clicky. Yeah, and there you go. There's no gaps. So what we're looking at now, we'll just move that out of the way, is that's okay. But we're going to do those 6 screws up first, just to make sure they're sandwiched. Now I put a little bit of downward pressure with my fingers down, and then do these 6 screws up as we go, still putting pressure on each section, because last thing you want to do, you don't want to bolt the phone up, the screen to the phone, with a little bit of a gap in it, because it just looks ugly when you've got the whole thing built up. So again, just putting enough pressure on it, always sort of checking as well to make sure there's no gaps, all the way down the side, all the way there. Make sure the home button still clicks. Yeah, great stuff. There we go. So then we can start to proceed putting the phone back together, and we're going to put these little screws in place into the corners. We know that this one, I remember rightly, again I'm putting pressure on that corner while I'm doing it as well. It's got that little bit of black tape, like that bit there. I remembered it. So there we go. And that's again the sort of the non-professional repair companies. They don't bother with all this stuff, and it's there for a reason. It really is. It's not there to be left out. It's not there. Do you think Apple wastes material and labour time in putting something that really doesn't need to be there? I think not. So it's a case of putting everything back in how it should, and that's what we pride ourselves on. Yeah, people do it cheaply using crap parts. People do it faster, doing half a job. But that will just bite you in the backside, because you'll find out your Wi-Fi is not working, and you'll go in there and you'll realise that something's shorting out the casing. You know, something's shorting against the casing, and it could have been prevented by a tiny bit of tape that somebody thought was unnecessary being put back in. So, put those screws all the way around. Thanks for the comments, guys. By the way, obviously we're all following the channel, and we're trying to put videos up as and when we can. It's great to see some of your feedback, and again, people put in little bits of advice that I may have forgotten to mention, stuff, you know, it's always good to hear. So thanks for that, and keep that up. Subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more in the throes. Obviously the iPad 2, getting around to some of those videos as well. So that's essentially the screens. Another quick check. Great. Home buttons clicking. Perfect. So that's the screen back on. Now what I do at this point is have a check on the screen, make sure it's all okay. Home button's there, home button's good. We can remove that film now, actually. It's not going to scratch on here. Yeah, so we can go about building the phone back up to its original state. First thing we need to do is put the vibration motor back on. Now, sometimes when you lift this up, you can bend that little contact. Those contacts, you might see they're bent up a little bit, just giving them a little bit of a flattening out. That's all they need, and it's quite obvious where it goes. I don't think it's that absolute millimetre critical, but it needs to go back in the right place, and you can see where the sticker was as to where it's supposed to live. Push that down gently, push the contacts gently, and you can see that little tang there sits over that. So there's a vibration motor back in. Next thing we need to do is put the speaker dock in. That sits in bottom first, in there, and then sits down, and what you'll find is there's four little tangs, for want of a better word, in there, and it's just a case of using the RSS mode. Just literally, they click in, you push them in, and they go in that gap there and kind of spring out. They're like spring clips. If you force this down now, it might not go down fully and it won't sit properly, or it will just bend those tangs and ping them off. Now they are like your aerial connection to your chassis of your phone, your frames, and you need those. So make sure they're all pushed in and all nicely, with your thumb keeping pressure on that, because it will spring back out. We're just going to put that corner screw in, just to try and prevent it from peeing back out. Put that little corner screw in, and there we go. There's the speaker thing. Yes, speaker. Right, next thing we're going to do is put the board in. Now, you need to just be careful of these cables. Slide the board in, if you guys can see that. Slide the board in underneath these cables, and what happens is also the board, again, we're coming in at that angle, we're coming in and then sitting it down, and what happens is the top of the board there just tucks in to into the frame itself. These are a little bit more fiddly than the iPhone 4. You've just got a little bit more to watch out for. Make sure that you're not trapping any connectors, any cables. I would hold this up to the camera, but it's pretty tricky to do without doing any damage. Right, there we go, somewhere near there. Right. Another thing you can do is just push that cable down. You've got dotted lines where they are meant to bend, so you can sort of pre-bend the cables a little bit, just to give you a little bit more or a little bit less resistance in the cables. Right, tuck this section into the board, into the frame here, and then the board also, it tucks into underneath this little tang here. And again, you shouldn't have to force it. If there's any force being needed, then there's a chance that you're trapping something. So you've got to be really careful, really vigilant, and just take it gently. If you're not sure what's going on, leave it, go away, have a drink, come back. Not alcoholic, because you might make more of a mess, or you might even be more calm. And then come back and have another go. There's no point forcing it, because you could end up with a fair sort of few £100 and dollar bills trying to replace your phone. So there you go. The board's sat in nicely. You know when it's home. There's no bounce in it. They're all on all the pegs. They're all sat flush down. And there's the board sat in. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put one screw in, this little right hand side screw, just to secure the board down a little bit, stop it from moving around while we get all the other bits and bobs in place. Put that screw in there, and we start with all these connectors. Now, chances are all these connectors find their own home now, because they've been there and they've been sat there and they're all bent to shape. So it's a case of putting one connector at a time. And then what I do is I tend to use the back of a plastic tool just to push the connector home and just gently rub it, because you don't want them pinging back up. So you use your finger to find the connector and push it down and make it click, and then just run over it like that. There we go. So you're putting those set of connectors back in. Now this connector here is really tricky. It's a case of folding over and being very careful. These circular connectors, if you get them misaligned and then you push them down, you can end up breaking the circle. They're really fragile, so you know, you've just really got to be patient with them. And they give you a nice little sort of a little clunk as they go in, and you know that they're home and dry really. So put the tools aside, let's get some more screws going. We're going to put that castellated screw in at the top, little flat blade, straight in there. Put that down like so, and we can put the bottom one in as well. Again, making sure that none of these aerial tangs have pinged up or anything. Now they're looking okay. We can put that little castellated one in the bottom as well while we've got the flat blade out. Again, parts, tools, accessories, bloody bar, iPods, iPhones, iPads on AppleiPodParts.com, and we ship worldwide. And if you check our YouTube underneath the video, don't know why I'm pointing down, but maybe that way, you can see a discount code. You'll get a discount off the parts there as well. Right, so the board's going together. There's that little screw at the top. We were trying not to forget, weren't we? It's actually stuck to the camera there, and that gold bracket. Now, if you remember which way I said that goes, it goes like so. Lay it in there gently, and then come in with the screw. And then just tighten it up, and you know that bracket almost finds its own home. So there's the two tongs. Camera next? No, we'll put the screen cables down. Now obviously we're going to fold over those, and that screen connector, again with your finger, it's a case of it needs to find its own way. I think that's the digitizer's found a connection then. And then we're going to fold over the LCD, nice little click and click, and then we'll just rub over those as well. Happy they're in place. Camera goes in. We're going to put the camera in at an angle at the top, a little bit there, push it down, connector finds its own little home, clicks in, and then rubs home. There we go. Make sure that flash surround hasn't shifted too much. It's all about being conscientious, looking, seeing what should be where, make sure it all goes back in place, taking your time. You know, you can't go wrong really. Right, this little connector goes in here. Oops. Spin that around. It's got little spring clips there that just kind of slot into that little gap there. Push down, and there's a nice little firm spring, and then a tiny little screw that goes in there. That goes into the top of that castellated screw, like so. Finally, I believe this is the Wi-Fi aerial. There's a lot of debate about whether it is or not on the iPhone 4. I think it is. Those two little prongs tuck into the board, and then it sits down. And all you're left with, you're going to make sure that plastic tag, that metal tag, sorry, goes on the inside of that cable. So the cable is on the outside, and actually push it down. That clips in to place. And then we're going to run those screws right into it. So the large screw at the top tucks into there. With the camera in my way, I'm finding it hard to see what I'm doing. There you go, minuscule screw there. Don't over tighten those because they've got tiny little lugs underneath them. The iPhone 4 was common common that you used to break the little sort of lugs off of the board, especially in that screw there. And that was the one that actually strengthened your Wi-Fi signal. So if you ended up missing that screw out, then you ended up degrading your Wi-Fi signal. So just nip them. Don't really tighten them, especially if you've got to undo them again at any point. Yeah, they'll just snap right off. So we're into this bottom corner now, and again, it's remembering where everything goes. I'm going to remove that aerial cable just there for a second. In fact, we might as well tuck that on. So the aerial cable here. In fact, you can see the speaker's actually trying to find its way out again. So if we can get into there, we can just put those little clips in place. I think because this aerial connection wants to escape, we're going to put that other screw in here. Now, we have a little bracket, little plastic bracket that sits in place. If I can remember which way it goes, there we go. Again, so many screws, really got to be conscientious of where they're going. So that screw goes in there, and that holds the speaker down. I'm quite happy that's in place. Aerial connection come along. Again, this is one of those circular connectors. By the time you've routed that cable, it should find its own rough way, and then you're just looking for that very firm click as that's in place. That basically wraps underneath the bottom of the castellated screw, around it, through that little bracket, and then onto the position. Screw in the corner of the board here. That one goes in like so. What we're left with, 2 bottom screws, 2 battery screws, and that bracket. So the dot connector, we're all happy that the rest of it is in place. The dot connector literally just folds over. That connection finds its own way. You can just rub it and it finds its own position. Then you push in, nice little click. Bit of pressure applied on there, and then this bracket goes on over the top. We've got a screw with a big beveled edge. I believe that goes outboard. And then there's the other little one that goes inboard. And this plate just serves to hold the dot connector down. Because the last thing you want to do is for it to pop out if there's any phone impact, and then push that cable down just gently, just go into place. Right, so that's essentially the phone pretty much assembled. Next thing we're going to do is put the battery on. So I'm going to put my adhesive for the battery, not adhesive, but the sort of pull flap, if you like, in place. Bring the battery over. Now, again, on the iPhone 4, a lot of people got this wrong, but this little bracket goes first, and then the battery goes in place. Sometimes it's better to do it first, sometimes you can do it afterwards. So you position that over there. The little prong points up because that grounds against the back casing, and then the battery connector sits in place over like so. Push the battery into the corner, sit it down, and then we can do the screws in there. Two little screws that hold the battery connector down, and that's just come slightly loose, so we need to put that back in place. There we go. Hope you can see all this. There's so much more filly detail on the 4S that it's hard to hold it up to the camera and show you at the same time. There we go, that's the battery connection in place. We'll spin it over and just power it up. There we go, so it's powered up, it's all connection. In the meantime, we can just finish off the last couple of touches. SIM card tray in, and then the rear casing on. So the last thing we do is check, make sure there's no dust in the camera lens, give it a blowout on both that, and then the rear camera. You see it's half the camera hole up really. You're looking at the gap there, so it's a good gauge, half a camera up. Push the case down so it's all the way flush, and then with your thumbs and fingers just slide it down. Slide it to the bottom. Still powering up. So there we go. Bingo. One screen. So there we go, from start to finish. There's the iPhone 4S repair, the 2 screws going at the bottom. We need the pencil lobe screwdriver for that, the Torx screwdriver. Again, my name's Neil Barker. thanks for watching my video for the 4S screen replacement. A little bit more fiddly than the iPhone 4, I'm sure you'll agree, but still, once you've done a few, then there's nothing to stop you. You know, you can get this repair down to sort of probably 25 minutes or so, start to finish. And yeah, all the parts, all the tools, all the accessories on our AppleiPodParts.com website. We ship worldwide. There's even a discount at the bottom of the screen to get you some money off your parts. There we go. So, one iPhone 4S screen repair. I'm Neil Barker, and thanks for watching.